The proximal transverse arch its location is across the carpal bones. Its function is really to provide a stable base for the hand movements. And the supporting muscles are the flexor carpi ulnaris, flexor carpi radialis, flexor carpi ulnaris, and the flexor reticulum. And the distal transverse arch is across the metacarpal heads versus the carpal bones of the proximal, but distal proximal just makes sense. And it just allows the hand to adapt to an object, really more like this. And the lumbricalis and the interossei are the muscles that are the key in that movement. And the longitudinal arch is from the wrist to the fingertips, mainly the second and third, and just allows for a power grip, basically, the grasp. That's flexor digitorum profundus and superficialis, and thinner and hypothinner muscles. That's my review of the 3 arches. Hey, Elena Boyd, can you hold a plank for 10 seconds and just now be observing your 3 hand arches while you do this? Hmm. 10 seconds. And so during this, my partner's distal and longitudinal arches seem to be collapsed. The palms are flat against the floor, and most of the pressure was on the pinky side area of the 5th metacarpal heads, and also the heads are not correctly aligned, showing under-engagement of the intrinsic stabilizers. All right, thank you, Elena. And now I'm going to just give you like a few cues during the plank to see if we can change some of the positioning of the arches so it's not under or overcompensating.
Okay.
Okay, so can we go back into that plank? And now, could you try to press evenly through the base of your index and thumb?
Okay.
And then see about lifting the center of your palm slightly, like almost making a dome. And maybe spread your fingers wide and grip the floor slightly. Okay. So, it's okay. So during this, the palms slightly were elevated. The fingers were spread and engaged the interosseous. It was just able to really disperse the pressure more, and load distributions were more evenly across the palms. The wrists were more able to be in some more slight extension, improving joint alignment. And so the unprompted trials we saw, it was arches were minimally engaged. But after the kinematic cues, we were able to basically press through the thumb and the dome of the palm, and that was a visible lift from the center of the palm. As I said, the load distribution evened out, reducing strain at the wrist as it seemed more aligned joints, less tremor. Even though it was a little fatigue, there was more control within the plank itself. And its functional relevance is really important in a bunch of osteokinematics and exercise, where muscles are directly aligned with the arches of our hands when thinking about like power grip and force distribution within those 3 arches in our carpal and carpal metacarpal joints. During the first unprompted trial, my partner performed a plank without any cues, and I noticed that the palms were completely flat against the floor. Most of their weight was shifted towards the pinky side of the hand. The distal and the longitudinal arches were also collapsed. The fingers were actively pressing into the surface, and this caused the wrist to be slightly overextended. You can also see some compensation in the forearm muscles as they try to stabilize. There's just some mild observances. And but after the cues were indicated, like pressing through the base of the index finger and the thumb to lift the center of the palm like a small dome, their hand position changed immediately and slightly, but the wrist became a more neutral alignment, and the load was easily distributed more evenly across the 5 metacarpal heads. The palm developed into a visible dome shape when compared to the uncued, It showed activation of the longitudinal and distal transverse arches, and overall stability just improved. There was less shaking, in my opinion. With muscle activations, the arches were engaged, or when the arches were engaged, both intrinsic and extrinsic muscles became more active. Different muscles like lumbricals and interosseous helped lift it and stabilize the distal transverse arches across the metacarpal heads, and thinner and hypothenar muscles, especially the abductor digiti minimi and the opponent digiti minimi, they just supported longitudinal arch on the ulnar side. And so, through research and observation of these muscles, I was able to observe them working and even being under and overcompensated during her plank. And the intrinsic muscles like the flexor digitorum profundus, superficialis, help maintain tension through the whole time, mainly through the fingers though. And the flexor carpi radialis and the flexor carpi ulnaris help stabilize the proximal transverse arch, and we could see that almost through the twitching of the upper hand. It just created a more solid hand structure. Yeah. Its functional relevance is just that poor arch engagement can lead to inefficient force transfer and instability throughout time. The hand and wrist may increase stress and carpal tunnel, poor wrist ligaments, just other age and pain injuries with overuse and poor structure and alignment. This can really affect a lot of people in many ways, especially working people, and even people that just play racket sports on the daily. Just very, very a nuance is what it becomes. But on the other side, when the arches are active, the hand becomes more stable and efficient as a base for all that load. Especially if the palm can be domed when trying to display solid force from a push-up or a plank. And even if it's not completely dome-shaped, the attempt and the activation of said muscles to activate that, engaging the arches, even if it's not completely observable, reduces wrist strain and improves the overall grip control and even the dexterity whenever in a plank along the floor, and the gripping of the fingertips with the metacarpals. The cueing of the arches just changed my partner's hands from a flat to something more passive. It wasn't even so conscious, to more strong and dynamic, which was really needed for such a unique type of exposure to the hands, especially whenever you have such a unconscious desire to overcompensate with wrist disalignment. Anyways, that's that.